Hello Yu-Gi-Oh players, and welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! Business Casual. I'm your host, the RJB0. So today is day 2 of Decks and Techs Week, so I'm going to bring you guys another discussion of a tech card that I've been thinking about. Today's discussion is on a card that used to be a really big deal pre-Extreme Victory, however made a pretty good show of dropping off the face of the planet ever since Zale came out. The card is My Body as a Shield. This is a quick play spell card that when your opponent activates a card or effect that would destroy a monster or multiple monsters on the field, you can pay 1,500 life points as cost to negate the activation of that effect and destroy the card. Now this is actually a fairly diverse card, like the card I talked to you guys about yesterday. It can act both in a similar fashion to Forbidden Lance, since it can stop things like Bottomless, Torrential, Mirror Force, etc., but it can also act in a similar fashion to Effect Veiler in stopping your opponent's plays, and it can stop a number of things that are fairly important for you to get rid of. However, it does raise an interesting bit of theory, which is that since this card acts both like Effect Veiler and Forbidden Lance, it is a very diverse card. However, both Effect Veiler and Forbidden Lance are better at what they do than My Body as a Shield is at the same thing. Which leads me to believe that we as a TCG have been moving away from more diverse cards in our decks and more toward more specific cards to take out the things that are really problematic for our particular decks. However, this card does make a difference for certain decks against certain other decks. I apologize for the sound of the airplanes going by overhead. Civil Air Patrol is happening. Anyway, moving on, so one of the decks that this is actually really helpful for is Girgia. One of the problems that Girgia has against the Mermail matchup is that when they try to set their armor, their opponent's just going to go, okay, Marksman, pop the armor, and there isn't a whole lot you can do about it unless you're, of course, maining the Soul Drain, or you drew into the Soul Drain, or a D-Fissure, or something like that. However, My Body as a Shield takes care of that issue fairly effectively. Because it blocks the marksman from destroying your Girgia armor, and that forces them to attack into the Girgia armor or put more monsters on the board that you can stop yourself. It also protects your Girgia armor from things like Dark Hole, from Bear. A lot of cards that are really problematic to the Girgia deck stop being problematic when you use My Body as a Shield. Now, one of the nice things about this is it can protect face-down monsters, as opposed to something like Forbidden Lance or Forbidden Dress. It does not act as effectively as Veiler, but it has a more diverse use against the cards that are problematic for a face-down Girgia armor. Another really nice thing about this card is it's very good against artifacts, and I'll tell you why. The very best card to play against artifacts is Abyss Dweller. Why? Well, because it's a monster, so it's not MST-able, and it blocks them from using their effects from the graveyard to special summon themselves. One of the only outs the deck has for Abyss Dweller is a Theosophy into Moraltalk play. So you go into your Abyss Dweller, your opponent goes Theosophy into Moraltalk. Normally you would be kind of SOL, because most players aren't running Breakthrough Skill, and even if you are, you can't use it on your very first turn, which is when you'd want to go for that Abyss Dweller play. And you definitely probably are not going to be using Forbidden Chalice, which also does the same thing, but they also both don't act as effectively as My Body as a Shield in that situation, because the nice thing about what My Body as a Shield does is it destroys the monster. So your opponent goes for the Theosophy into Moraltalk play, they attempt to destroy your Abyss Dweller, you destroy their Moraltalk instead. If you left the Moraltalk on the board with something like Breakthrough Skill or Forbidden Chalice, then they're just going to run over your Abyss Dweller by battle, and then you're kind of SOL in that situation. However, this gets rid of the problem very nicely, and you can continue your Abyss Dweller play and continue messing them up. One of the nice things about this card, and one of the reasons why it used to be extremely popular, is it's a fairly universal fucker-upper of scrap plays. Now, Scrap Factory has made that slightly less true, because although this card does negate the activation of the monster's effect, it does not force the Scrap Factory to miss timing, even though Scrap Factory is a when you can effect, because it negates the activation of the card and not its effect, so the card effect does not attempt to resolve, meaning that the Scrap Factory reads the last thing that happened as being you destroying the monster. So that's kind of a problem. However, it is one of the very few cards in the game that can stop Scrap Storm. And one of the reasons why that's important is because Scrap Storm is one of the starters for their play. Usually, one of the opening plays is they start by putting down the Scrap Factory, summoning a Scrap Beast, and putting a Scrap Storm face down. If you go for this If they attempt to go for the Scrap Storm, when you put a big beater on the board and attempt to run over their Scrap Beast, you can just go My Body as a Shield, stop the Scrap Storm from happening, and then the Scrap Factory doesn't go off, the Scrap Storm doesn't happen, which means that they don't get to add a Chimera from their deck to their hand and draw a card, and they also don't get to special summon a monster from their deck. So you can just run over that Scrap Beast, get the plus, take out their Scrap Storm, and get that problem out of the way. It's also very nice to use against Trap Tricks as a card that would destroy, negate the things like Trap Hole, which are things that they are going to try and add to their hand. And fairly universally, the trap cards that they use in a Trap Tricks deck are cards that destroy monsters on the field, because that's what all the Trap Holes do. They all destroy a monster. None of them just banish it or send it back to your hand or something. So this is a diverse card in that it can take on many of the multiple strategies that are going to be popular in this format. So if you're playing a deck like Girgia, which is very vulnerable to things that you can't stop with Forbidden Lance, then My Body as a Shield is a very possible tech card. This may not even be the best format to use this card, but it is something to keep your eye out for, since it's such a diverse card and such a powerful card, both for stopping your opponent's plays and for stopping your own plays. So I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, let me know why in the comment section below. And of course, if you guys have any other ideas for what to do with this card, let me know in the comment section down below, and discuss the card. Do you think that we could use it? Do you think this is ever going to be good again? Meanwhile, thank you guys for watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Business Casual. I'm your host, the RJB0, and I got a jet. See you guys.